Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. Last week, I talked about the healer role in DDO. I gave my thoughts on the current state of healers and how you can approach playing a healing character both from a style standpoint and a mindset standpoint. I wanted to expand on that topic this week and talk about support roles in general in the game, what the current state of support roles are and support characters, and what I would like to see in the future when it comes to making support roles more worth it in groups. So, should support roles be relevant? Should everyone be completely self-sufficient and able to cover all roles, or should we need party members for specific roles to get through content, and especially the toughest of content? I'm talking epic elite, endgame raids, and quests. I see this discussed all the time. Players talk about it all the time. There's a few different camps of thinking. Actually, there's two camps of thinking. The first camp says, hey, I don't want to wait on X role. I want characters to be self-sufficient. I want that to be a possibility because it's not good to sit there and stall my gameplay having to wait for a specific role or to require specific characters. It's just a big roadblock. The other camp of thinking, which is the camp I tend to agree with, say, hey, this is an MMO. What's the point if everyone is soloing everything? Part of this game is creating a party that's more than just the sum of its parts. It's about having that party synergy, having new strategy and tactics, and certain roles to get through content. Now, I certainly understand that we don't. The first camps of thinking that we don't want to have to wait on a specific character all the time, and I think that there is room in DDO to support both play styles. I don't think the game has to go one way or the other. When players tend to discuss this and argue about it, it tends to come with the assumption that, hey, the game has to require roles or has to make everything soloable and have everyone be self-sufficient. But in reality, I think there's a way to do both. So my general thought on this is that support party tactics, party roles, support characters should be needed on the highest difficulty, but not needed on lower difficulties. It should be more needed at in-game than it is in heroics. That way, party play is still supported, but if a party isn't available, you can still run a lower difficulty. And I'm referring, of course, to support being more needed in higher difficulties and lower difficulties. If you think about it, when DDO first started, I believe the casual difficulty was called solo. So the lower difficulties are there, and at least when the game was created, they were there with the intent that, hey, if you just have yourself to play the game with, or you only have one friend, you can run a lower difficulty. And if you have a whole party that together and willing to run the content with you, you can run elite. We got away from that as the game got older, but I think that was the original intent, that lower difficulties be more for soloing and the higher difficulties be for a full party. But in today's game, with today's community, we've reached a point where the expectation now is that elite should be easily completable. It wasn't at first, but we've kind of led up to this. A lot of decisions in the game have led to this becoming a reality, such as the bravery streak, favor being tied to elite. You have to complete elite to get the most favor, stuff like that. It's made players feel that elite was required just because the incentives to run elite are so good. The bravery bonus is so much more extra XP. The favor is so good when it's so good to unlock the favor to get the highest amount of favor, because you can unlock stuff like Yugoloth potions, and also unlock classes like Artificer and Favored Soul, things like that. So the rewards for running elite are so good that it made it so that the community everyone wanted to be able to complete elite, and to make people happy, the developers kind of had to make that a reality. And let me move on to my next point, and this is what I was referring to just now. The problem we have today is that the highest difficulty feels required. So how do we address this? the highest difficulty feeling required, unfortunately, is a reality. I don't think there's any way to change this. I don't think there's a way to make Elite harder because the expectation's there. People want to be able to complete Elite on hardest difficulty. Whether you easily, soloable, they want Elite to be completable. So whether you agree with that or not, and I've discussed this so many times on my channel, it's not going to change. The expectation's there. So what can we do about this? We can make a difficulty above Elite. I'd like this difficulty to be the place where party support again in support tunes is once again required. Or I don't know if I want to use the word required, but it should be very, very difficult without a full party. So what do we do to make it so this new difficulty doesn't feel required and that people don't get upset that support tunes are required at this difficulty? We don't want to put any make or break exclusive drops in this difficulty. As far as incentivizing this difficulty, I'm looking for small upgrades in loot, higher drops for stuff like tomes and remnants. And it's probably not a good idea to put a whole new level of loot at this highest difficulty, like we used to have with epic crafting, for example, because we might make it feel required again and be in the same boat. We also need stuff dropping on this highest difficulty, this new difficulty, that people actually care about. We don't want to not incentivize a higher difficulty that requires support tunes. If there's no incentive to run the difficulty, people aren't going to run it. We need to at least have some things in there. And it has to be stuff that people care about. It can't just be, hey, +2 to your chest loot. Stuff like that, or more platinum that no one cares about. We need stuff that people actually want at end game. Really, in any part of the game, really. So I think with a new difficulty, we can please the players that are in my camp who want to see support roles, who want to see a higher difficulty required again, not required, but put into DDO again. Because players like me, we can run the highest difficulty, whatever you want to call it, Reaper or Mythic. We can run that difficulty, get a little more XP, get a few more drops like combinations of Valor or Remnants, stuff like that, but at the same time it won't feel required because we won't have a whole new level of loot. Like, it won't be like epic crafting used to be, where you had to run epics to get the best loot in the game. I wouldn't be against a small loot upgrades, but stuff, I'm talking really small, like +7 spell power on a scepter, stuff like that. But I know that's a careful line, and making loot the best loot in the game only attainable on the highest difficulty might make it feel required again, and would be in the same boat as we would create the same problem that we're trying to solve. So let's move on now to support roles, how they exist today, and what their problems are today, and why they're not worth it. The biggest issue we have with support roles, and I'm referring right now just to buffers and healers, is the developers have severely proxy nerfed them over the years. And they've done this by making almost all of their crucial buffs and abilities available to almost every class in the game through clickies or enhancements or excellent self-healing in the epic destinies like Cocoon. Almost every vital buff in the game is available on a clicky, and that's an issue. You really don't need a cleric casting their buffs on the party, or a wizard or a bard, because all those buffs, they're almost all of them are available on clickies. And that's one thing I don't like about changes. Recent changes is I think the classes have become very homogenized, but that's another topic. But when it comes to the buffs, everyone has access to cleric buffs like freedom of movement on items. We have death ward that's on items. We have clickies. We have energy resists on ships that are available to everyone. When it comes to arcane spells, everyone has access to stuff like blur and displacement, greater heroism, and teleport. And when it comes to the bard buffs, some of them are nice, and I know some of them, like I can't recall what it is now, but one of the higher buffs on the War Chanter tree was pretty nice. That does stack, but a lot of the bard songs, especially the old bard songs like like Inspire Courage. I couldn't think of the name there. Inspire Courage do not scale. So those have been proxy nerfed in that way. And I've already referenced self-healing. Everyone has had excellent self-healing, and I talked about this a lot in my last video. So clerics, favored souls, healing classes have been severely proxy nerfed because everyone has access to this great self-healing, so they don't need a cleric to heal them. So let's move on to the core part of the video. So how can we make support roles viable again? One problem is we can't really nerf self-healing, and we can't nerf clickies. People wouldn't stand for it, so we're going to have to think of new mechanics to kind of get around this. Some of the ideas I have is I like the idea of some kind of healing penalty for raid bosses on higher difficulties, and by this I mean a raid healing penalty on players. I've mentioned this before. I like the idea of, in a raid, possibly an aura around a boss that doesn't allow healing while you're in it. That would require someone to be assigned to a healing role to stand outside of that aura and heal the people in it. We could possibly have on a boss some kind of positive or repair spell power debuff on hit. So every time you hit the boss or shoot it with an arrow, hit it with a spell, you get a debuff to your positive and repair spell power. And I would want these to be exclusive to the highest difficulty. I wouldn't want people to have to run a raid on normal and have to deal with this. I want this to exist as just a high difficulty mechanic that could incentivize a roll again. It kind of makes it so you have to have certain people assigned towards healing and other people assigned towards DPS. Everyone can't do everything. As for buffing, I think it's past time to do a spell pass and an epic destiny pass, and I know those are kind of high hopes because I know the developers have way too much on their plate already with the current staff size. They're working through class revamps, which are definitely going to be a higher priority, and it's taking them a long time to get through that. But I would like to see, whenever it's possible, a spell pass and an epic destiny pass, both for divine and arcanes. I think a lot of divine and arcane buffs should scale better into epics and let them be a higher buff than what you can get from a clicky or a potion. I just hate today that all my cleric buffs and all my wizard buffs are available to every single other class on a clicky or through UMD. It just makes makes those spells almost worthless. It's a homogenization that I don't like. So I'd also like to see some new buffs in there for both divines and arcanes that are exclusive to that class and again are not available on a clicky, scroll, or potion. I'd also like to see more give and take introduced to the game. Let players have a choice between a big DPS boost or a self-healing or versatility on their build. I'd like to see new abilities, effects, or gear introduced that give you a huge DPS boost, but at the same time they run a cost of shutting off your self-healing or self-buffing or some other kind of versatility in your character. That way that there's more give and take. I don't like that you can have the best self-healing and the best DPS. I think there should be more compromises there. You shouldn't be able to get everything on your build. One example I've thought of is the Madstone boots. This was an item back in the day that was designed with my idea in mind. No, not my idea in mind. I mean with the same idea I have in mind. The Madstone boots gave you a boost to your DPS and your health, but they did that at a cost of shutting off your spell casting. I'd like to see an epic version of the Madstone boots. That would be really neat. Maybe an epic version of Madstone Rage. I understand we already have epic giant holds, so I don't know where this item would exist. It might exist in some other form, in another name, but I'd like to see some kind of mechanic like that. So overall, guys, I know I've, once again, like last week's video, just thrown a barrage of different ideas and thoughts. Probably not the most organized video I've ever done your way. I've thrown a lot of ideas here. I'm not saying in this video I want soloers to be forced to group, and I'm not saying I want people to be forced to group at all. I'm just saying I think there's room in this game for both support for soloers and support for groupers, and I think there's a way to incentivize grouping without making it feel required. So guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thanks for listening, and give me a subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.